She told me, if you won't drive my friends to the concert, I'll just go with my ex instead. I tossed her the spare key and replied, have fun. Hours later, she was frantically calling me from a towing lot. Like most drama, it began with what looked like a casual request, though it was really a demand disguised with a thin layer of courtesy. I run a workshop specializing in restoring vintage cars. It's more than just employment for me, it's my passion and the work of my life. That Saturday, I was in the middle of the most delicate stage of a full rebuild, a 1969 Charger for a client paying top dollar for nothing short of perfection. The engine sat on a stand, wiring spread out like an intricate nervous system, and my deadline was breathing down my neck. This was no weekend for interruptions. My girlfriend of 2 years, Chloe, knew this well. She'd known about the Charger project for months. Still, she walked into the shop with her 2 friends, Tiffany and Jessica, in full concert attire. I'd told her weeks earlier I couldn't join because of my workload. Hey, she said with an overly cheerful tone. We're ready to head out. The opening act starts in an hour. I wiped grease off my hands and met her gaze. Chloe, we've been over this. I can't leave the shop. I'm right in the middle of timing the engine. If I stop, I lose a whole day. Her smile tightened. Her friends hovered behind her, shifting awkwardly, their expressions a mix of impatience and sympathy. I was becoming far too familiar with that look. Mark, you promised you'd work something out, she said. How are we supposed to get there? A rideshare will cost a fortune. I never promised that, I said evenly. I told you I couldn't go and you'd need to sort out a ride. I figured one of you would drive. Tiffany cut in. None of us want to deal with downtown parking. It's a nightmare. You've got the big truck, it'd be way easier. They wanted me to drop a project tied to my livelihood just so they could avoid parking hassles. The entitlement in the room could have been cut with a wrench. I'm sorry, but it's not happening. You'll need another plan. That's when Chloe's expression turned icy. She raised her phone. Fine. If you don't care about me having a good time, I'll just call Alex. I bet he'd love to take me. Alex, the ex-boyfriend she swore was in the past but always seemed to appear in conversations when she wasn't getting her way. He worked some vague finance job, drove a leased German sedan. In her mind, he was sophisticated. I was just the grease-covered guy paying our rent. The message was clear, give in or she'd run to the other man. For 2 years, I'd tolerated these little power plays, the digs about my job, the forgotten wallet when we were out with her friends, the assumption that my time and resources were hers to use. That moment, though, something didn't snap. It settled. Calm, sharp, and final. I pulled out my key ring, slid off a spare. The one for my old Honda Accord. A 20-year-old, beat-up errand car I'd paid cash for. Not pretty, but dependable. I tossed her the key. She caught it, looking puzzled. What's this? That's for the Honda, I said, turning back to the engine. Alex might be busy. You can take that instead. Enjoy the concert. The air went heavy. Her friends glanced between each other and her. This was not the scene she'd planned, no pleading, no anger, no giving in. Just me calling her bluff and handing her a different solution. The Honda, she scoffed. I'm not taking that ugly thing. It's that or a rideshare, I said without looking up. Your call. I heard her huff in frustration, then the sound of 3 pairs of footsteps leaving the shop. A minute later, I heard the familiar, slightly metallic hum of the Honda's engine. They were actually going to use it. What Chloe and her friends didn't know about that car was, well, quite a bit. It was my backup runabout. The utility car I used for errands. And since I sometimes had to leave it parked on the street in a less-than-ideal neighborhood, I'd made some modifications. Years ago, I'd fitted a small GPS tracker under the dash and wired a remote kill switch into the fuel pump. It was a basic anti-theft setup. With just a tap on my phone, I could see exactly where it was and shut it down until I turned it back on. I'd never actually needed to use it, but the option was always there. I'd also warned Chloe, more than once, about a quirk with that car. If the check engine light ever starts flashing, I'd told her at least half a dozen times, the secondary fuel filter's clogging. Pull over, let it rest an hour. If you keep driving, it'll stall. Every time, she'd wave me off with, yeah, I get it, car stuff. I went back to the charger build, oddly calm. About an hour later, curiosity got the better of me. I opened the tracker app. The Honda wasn't anywhere near the concert hall. It was parked in the middle of a busy bar district, halfway there. Then a text from Chloe popped up, Alex bailed, not picking up his phone. We're stopping for a drink to figure it out. So the big threat, the ex-boyfriend she'd dangled over me, was just as unreliable as I'd guessed. And now, she was driving my car, stranded between her original plan and reality. They stayed there for over an hour. The dot on my screen didn't move. I could picture them complaining about me, about Alex, about the ruined evening. Eventually, the car started moving toward the concert, late and probably irritated. They hit the main highway, a long stretch with few exits. I watched for about 10 miles. Then, right as they reached the most inconvenient section, I opened the second app, the one tied to the fuel pump kill switch, and tapped deactivate. Phone back in my pocket, I returned to my work. 2 hours of blissful silence followed, during which I made incredible headway on the charger. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Chloe, the car died in the middle of the highway. Won't start. I waited a few minutes, then replied, did the check engine light start flashing? Her reply came instantly, yes, for the last 10 minutes. What does that mean? I wrote back, it means you ignored my instructions and pushed it until it clogged completely. Calls started. I ignored them. More texts, what do I do? People are honking. It's dangerous. Then, Tiffany's calling her dad. We have to leave the car. This is your fault. I didn't answer. An hour later, I got an automated text from Highway Patrol. My vehicle had been towed from the shoulder as an abandoned hazard. Half an hour after that, Chloe called again, voice sharp and panicked. Mark, they towed it. I'm at the yard and it's $300 to get out. You need to come pay. I took a long, satisfied breath. No, Chloe. You were driving. You ignored my warnings. This is your problem to solve. Good luck. I hung up. The evening wasn't over yet. Update 1. The 2 days after the concert fiasco were a study in blame shifting. After I hung up on her at the tow yard, Chloe called about 20 more times. I didn't pick up. The voicemail cycled from rage, to pleading, to bitter accusations, claiming I'd set her up to ruin her night. Her friends joined in. Tiffany texted me a string of insults, calling me controlling. I simply replied with a screenshot of my earlier text warning Chloe not to drive if the check engine light was flashing, then blocked Tiffany. Chloe's real headache was the $300 impound fee plus daily storage charges stacking up. She didn't have the cash. I knew this because our finances, while mostly separate, weren't a mystery to me. She lived paycheck to paycheck, most of it spent on clothes, eating out, and nights with her friends. She eventually got a ride home from her parents, who she'd had to call, humiliated. She walked in late Sunday afternoon, and the confrontation I'd been expecting finally arrived. She did not lead with an apology. She opened with fury. You did that on purpose, she shouted as she came through the door. You knew that car would quit on me. I knew it might, if you ignored what I told you, which is exactly what you did, I answered, still sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. You left me and my friend stuck on the highway. It was humiliating. That's unfortunate, I said, turning a page. Maybe you should have gone with your ex. Oh wait, he bailed, didn't he? Guess your brilliant plan had a few flaws. Her cheeks flushed. The fact that I knew Alex had ditched them seemed to shake her more than the breakdown. It removed her leverage, her threat had been empty, and she knew I knew it. Then came her next mistake. You owe me for the tow bill, and you need to get that car out. I need it for work Monday. I finally set the magazine down. I don't owe you a thing, Chloe. And that's my car, not yours. You've shown you can't be trusted with it. You'll need another ride to work. That's when her anger gave way to something else, a frantic, nervous energy that didn't match the situation. It was bigger than just a ruined night and a tow fee. That evening, after she retreated to the bedroom for the silent treatment, my curiosity got the better of me. Chloe was careless with her devices, she often used my laptop and left her accounts logged in. I'm not proud of it, but I opened her messages. What I found explained everything. She and Tiffany hadn't simply been planning a concert. They'd been arranging to meet Alex and his friends at an upscale after-party, with Alex chauffeuring them all night. Her so-called ultimatum to me wasn't a spur-of-the-moment threat, it had been the main plan all along. Me driving was just the dull backup. The messages mocked me, calling me reliable but boring, making jokes about my truck, and gushing about how Alex knew all the best spots. One line from Chloe froze me: if I act frustrated enough, he'll cave. He always does. That single sentence erased the last bit of softness I had toward her. This wasn't a slip-up or a bad mood, it was calculated disrespect. She saw me as an obstacle to work around, not a partner. The next morning, I got up before she did. I pulled the empty boxes from our last move out of storage and began carefully packing all of her things: clothes, shoes, makeup, everything. I stacked the sealed boxes by the front door. Then I went to the bank and closed the small joint savings account we'd opened for emergencies. It had about $5,000, $4,000 of it mine. I withdrew my portion and left her the rest. When she finally saw the boxes, her face went pale. What is this? What are you doing? I'm finishing what you started, I said, handing her printed copies of her messages with Tiffany. Looks like you've been planning a life without me. I'm just speeding things along. She read them, hands shaking, with nothing to say for the first time since I'd met her. You need to find somewhere else to stay, I said evenly. Call your parents, your friends, or Alex. Maybe he can give you a ride. Her eyes shifted from shock to something like fear. The game was over. She'd assumed I'd keep playing my role. She never imagined I'd flip the whole board. Final update. It's been 3 months since that night. The fallout wasn't explosive, it was slow, and all of it came from her own actions. After I packed her boxes, she didn't call Alex. She called her parents. Her father, who had always seemed reasonable to me, arrived hours later. He took one look at the stacked boxes and the printed messages, and his tone shifted. He asked to speak privately in the garage. Mark, he said, did you know she maxed out the emergency credit card we gave her? Over $4,000 in 2 months. We had to pay it off to save her credit. No, sir, I said. But I can't say I'm shocked. He sighed. She's always expected the world without putting in the work. I'd hoped you were grounding her. I tried, I replied. But I can't be a partner to someone who treats me like a stepping stone. He helped load her boxes into his car. Before leaving, he shook my hand and said quietly, I'm sorry, Mark. Chloe said nothing. The next act was the social media smear. Chloe and Tiffany posted vague jabs about controlling men and escaping toxic situations. Some of their friends messaged me angrily. I ignored them. The truth has a way of surfacing. The Honda sat in impound for a week, fees climbing. Chloe called, insisting I get it because it was my responsibility. You're right, I told her. It is my car. I paid the $800 in fees, had it towed to my shop, and fixed it, flushing the fuel system, replacing the filter, giving it a tune-up. It still looked like a beat-up commuter car, but it ran perfectly. I kept it. 2 weeks later, word started getting around. Her father told relatives about her debt and the real reason she moved home. The controlling boyfriend narrative didn't last long. As for Alex, he messaged me once, "Heard you and Chloe are done. Her loss, man." I replied, "She's all yours. Good luck." Then blocked him. Her father later told me Alex stopped returning her calls within a week. Turns out he liked being the fun option, not the real-life solution. Now Chloe's living with her parents, juggling 2 jobs, paying off debt, and living within her means for the first time. She hates it. Me? I've never been better. I finished the '69 Charger, got a huge bonus, and landed 2 new projects. The shop's thriving. The old Honda now reminds me of something important. Sometimes the things people overlook or mock are the most reliable. Last week, I drove it to the coast, windows down, engine purring. My phone didn't ring once. It was just me, the road, and a freedom I hadn't felt in years.